This program is brought to you by the National Association of Insurance and Financial Advisors, promoting political advocacy, education, and the ethical conduct of its members nationwide.
As a member of NAIFA, the National Association of Insurance and Financial Advisors, I would like to thank you for taking this opportunity to review this final expense programs in a box. I think it will be valuable to your agents to see how in-depth that this product can be with the families that they're already serving and maybe taking their career or their sales to a higher level. But I'd like to also stress to you the importance of NAIFA, is that we're an organization that heavily involved in advocacy efforts in protecting your business, but we're also involved on helping you be a better you. Our professional development team and member services, we try to put products out there to help you learn more about the product, how to sell the product, how to market the product, and just help the families that you're served. So I thank you for watching this. I think it's going to be very valuable, the information that's in it. It talks about the products, it talks about the purpose of the product, and then it talks about who can I sell to. So you want your agents to make money, they want to make money. This is one more area which NAIFA can help provide that assistance to your agency. Welcome to another edition of NAIFA's Programs in a Box. I am Brenda Doty and I am the Sales and Marketing Director with First Guarantee Insurance Company, a final expense company which is located in Ashdown, Arkansas. Today we will begin our discussion regarding final expense insurance and the purpose this type of product provides for all age groups. We will review the products available as well as learn about the market for final expense insurance. The reality, which no one desires to consider, is that one day life will end. It's an event which is unavoidable. We will either be prepared in advance or we will leave many responsibilities to those left behind regarding funeral and final resting place decisions. With those decisions come financial responsibilities, and financial responsibilities do not disappear. Final expense insurance is oftentimes referred to as burial insurance. This insurance provides coverage for end-of-life expenses, which are related to funeral costs and many other related and oftentimes unexpected expenses. Burial insurance, most commonly called burial policies, were sold by burial associations. These policies were typically sold in certificate form and covered all the persons within the household. The head of the household would include each family member on the certificate for a small amount, such as $300, $500, and in later years were face amounts upward of $1,000. These certificates were issued by the burial associations and honored by most funeral homes. Some funeral homes had their own burial associations, and these policies or certificates were sold to cover the cost of funerals. Some of these policies were merchandise and service policies, which specifically stated the policy would cover exact cost of the service, the merchandise, the clothing, for the amount which was stated on the face of the certificate. Other policies paid the face amount of the policy regardless of the cost. This is a copy of a burial policy underwritten by the Equitable Life Assurance Society. As you can see, it was written on May 18th, 1881, so you can see that these policies do go back in time. Many funeral homes today offer what is called as pre-arranging or pre-planning of funeral expenses. They allow individuals to select funeral services, merchandise, cemetery plots and markers, grave opening and closing, and prepay those expenses. Final expense policies cover the funeral cost associated with the following. Services. These costs are related to the types of service selected. A traditional service, which is the most common service, includes a visitation service, funeral service, and a graveside service. These services are usually conducted within a 2 to 3 day time period. Today's consumer, however, may choose to streamline the amount of time dedicated for services and may choose to have a memorial service or just simply a graveside service. As you would expect, the cost is derived from the amount of time the funeral home staff is involved in these services. Funeral merchandise includes the casket or the burial container, the outer container, which is referred to as the vault, the memorial booklets, death certificates, and other related costs to the funeral. Casket and vault prices will vary in cost due to the size of the casket, design, and the type of the material. There may also be other expenses associated with death, such as unpaid medical bills, the balance on credit cards, loans, and legal expenses. Outstanding debts, such as credit cards, loans, and hospital bills on top of a funeral expense can be costly. As we leave our loved ones, we certainly do not want to leave them debt as well. A final expense policy will relieve our loved ones of financial responsibility for final expense if it is designed properly. Let's review a sample copy of a prepaid funeral benefits contract in which the insured selects the types of services and merchandise desired. After the selection is made, the description and cost of each item is written on this contract. Once all items have been recorded, then payment for these services and merchandise is expected if the consumer desires to prepay. Most prepaid contracts are funded through life insurance or bank trust. There is a binding contract which is drawn up between both parties, the insured and the funeral home, and it is most often irrevocable. The funds are only available upon death of the insured and paid directly to the servicing funeral home. Well, I know that most of us are familiar with selling health insurance, or we're familiar with selling mortgage insurance that will eliminate a mortgage, or we're helping plan for education, or we're planning for retirement. And I understand all of that and congratulate you for doing that. So I think this is a market that you need to really take and look at, because most of you, when you have clients and death occurs, you attend that funeral. You're with that family. You're the one that delivers that check that pays for the mortgage. Let's take it one step further and say, okay, this is my client. How can I really help them 100%? As you saw in the slides, bringing in that funeral director, and you know these funeral directors. You know, you go to coffee with them, you meet with them. And so get them to give you more education and knowledge on the funeral business about making decisions. And then when you do that, get a planning guide from them. They have those available so that you can help your client to not only prepare for living, you can help them prepare for that end of life, which says, this is how I want to be remembered. This is what type of merchandise or service or casket, and then you're funding that policy. You're making it available to them to have the funds necessary to complete their wishes. That's what you're doing anyway when you're doing retirement planning or you're doing educational planning. So I would say to you that this is a market that you've probably not looked at because it's a lower face amount. $25,000 is not going to get you a huge premium. However, 10 of those or 15 of those, or an easy sale, especially if you're in the multi-line market, it's just adding another bullet to your gun. It's just helping people in one more way that you're not opening that client to someone else that may make that sale. Because they're buying these policies. They're buying them through the funeral home. Why should they not buy this policy through you? You can learn this market. You have these clients are yours. They're walking into your office every day. They need to be prepared for that untimely death or that death that occurs later. And oftentimes I've shared experiences with agents in how to relate to families. And I want to share one experience with you. We had our children in a private school. and I became very close to the headmaster. And she was a very diligent lady, and she took care of everything. She bought the car, she took care of their retirement. Her husband was a barber, so he didn't take care of anything. They traveled. Well, she had bladder cancer. And one thing that I could never get Rena to do was to take care of the funeral. I never could get her to sit down and take care of that. She took care of everything else. And so the bladder cancer, her husband stayed in the hospital with her for 8 solid months, never went home. And so one day I was sitting in the funeral home, and James walks in and he hands me a piece of paper, and he said, "You have to take care of this." And I said, "James," I said, "we'll do the best that we can do." And he said, "Well, I could never get Rena to do this. She did everything else, never could get her to make these decisions." So sure enough, that day came. And it took me 2.5 hours to help the family make decisions. 2.5 hours of walking into the arrangement room, walking out of the arrangement room. And each time, James breaking down. And so I would say to you that anything that we can do as advisors or insurance agents to help our families be prepared to make decisions so that it gives direction to those left behind, we have done a great benefit for that family. Funerals are designed to bring closure to the family. Making decisions in advance and then making sure that those decisions are paid for gives the insured the peace of mind in knowing that they have provided for their family. The surviving spouse knows that they were loved and cared for, and the children do not have the responsibility of paying for funeral expenses. Each family member is relieved of the decision-making process, along with the relief of knowing there will not be a financial burden. Families are given the opportunity for closure and can begin the grieving process. Life insurance products are sold with the intention of paying a death benefit to surviving beneficiaries. Most commonly, the death benefit is replacing the income of the family breadwinner. We also know that mortgage insurance provides a debt-free home. Education needs can be met through death benefits and/or the cash values found within life insurance. Retirement needs can be met with as well by utilizing life insurance. If the insurance policy is properly designed, it can provide equity within the policy to provide emergency cash needs as well as death benefits. It is a plan which provides both living and death benefits. Final expense insurance is a target market just as automobile, homeowners, or commercial coverage. It's designed and designated to provide dollars to cover cost of funerals and other unexpected final expenses. These types of plans available are typically a level benefit and a level premium policy. The benefit will never go down, it will never reduce, and the premium will never increase. These policies are lower face amounts, which range most often from a $1,000 face amount up to $25,000 face amount. Other policy plans are the limited pay plans, such as a 10-pay policy or a 20-pay policy. So you can see that the insured can choose between a whole life policy, which they would pay their entire lifetime, or they can simplify it and pay it for 10 years or 20 years, at which time the policy would be paid up. Some companies also provide guaranteed issue and simplified issue products to provide coverage to employees on a payroll deduction basis. Graded benefit plans are written for those individuals who cannot qualify for standard policies. Premiums are typically higher than standard whole life rates. The death benefit for the first 3 years is paid as a percentage of the face amount should death occur. Most policies will pay the full face amount beginning in year 4. As with all insurance policies, the death benefit is received tax-free to the named beneficiary under the current tax rules. These policies also typically will not require a medical exam. So let's review for a second the policy types that are available. We have the level benefit, which is typically your whole life policy. We also have the limited pay plans that they can pay for 10 or 20 years. All of these products are level benefit. The benefit will never reduce. The premium will never increase. We also have available the simplified and guaranteed issue, which was helpful with people that do have some health conditions. The grade benefit will not pay the full face amount until about the 4th year. And then also remember, these benefits are received tax-free. According to the Federal Trade Commission, funeral expenses can cost up to $10,000 or more, which includes the casket, the burial, the flowers, death notices, death certificates, and other expenses. The average cost of a funeral alone, which is just the funeral service and merchandise, could be $7,755. We must take in consideration the additional cost of cemetery spaces, the marker or headstone, and the opening and closing of the grave. The question that I feel like that we should be asking all of our clients is, your family financially prepared to cover your final expenses? This chart reflects the increase in funeral cost comparing the years of 2004 to 2009. As you can see, each item has increased a percentage ranging from 9% to 31%. Transportation costs alone, which are reflected of the rising cost in fuel, relates accordingly to the rise in funeral cost. One of the highest percentage cost hike we see is the transportation of the body to the funeral home. It is a 28% increase over a 5-year period. So you can see that expenses in the funeral business typically are going to increase around 3% each year as we see inflation rising. As we see these costs increase, many families will believe that the government will step in and relieve the burden. The mindset is that we as taxpayers should receive a Social Security benefit if death occurs. Surprisingly enough, Social Security only pays $255, and one has to qualify to receive this benefit. Be sure and check the Social Security website for clarification. Also note on this chart, the death rates in America have begun an upward spiral beginning in years 2010. In comparison to the earlier years, it's projected that years 2025 through 2040 we will experience more deaths occurring than at any other time period. Baby boomers are living longer, which projects their longevity extending to ages 85 to 90 and oftentimes age 100. These deaths will begin occurring more rapidly in years beginning in 2030. So you can see from this chart that beginning in 2010, 2015, we're going to see an upward climb in the number of deaths that we're going to experience, which means that our baby boomers and our seniors need to be planning not only that they're going to have enough retirement funds, but also that they will have the funds necessary when death occurs, because age of death could be age 95 to 100. Final expense policies can also provide monies to offset expenses related to hospital stays such as intensive care. These expenses can be unexpected, and they will add to the family distress, as families must not only pay for funerals, they must pay for these expenses as well. Final expense insurance is not only related to just the funeral cost, but any of those unpaid bills that are left due to the insured death occurring, and oftentimes they have spent time in a medical facility before death has occurred. Funeral costs involve the cost of merchandise, which includes types of caskets. Most deaths occurring today will require some type of casket if any type of visitation and funeral service is desired. In 2008, 66% of the deaths were casketed. We have also seen a rise in the number of cremation preferences. Most cremation choices are due to extensive funeral costs and the families being transient. Add to that the longer longevity of Americans, and we can see that in some cases people have outlived both family and friends, and a full-service traditional funeral is not feasible. Therefore, cremation is the option that several families will choose. As we have discussed earlier, the traditional funeral service can reach thousands of dollars. Cremation costs are relatively less due to limited service and merchandise selection by the consumer. Cremation costs can vary from $1,500 to $6,000, which includes the cost of the crematory, the transportation of the deceased to the funeral home, the obituaries, memorial services, and death certificates. So there is a vast difference in how people look in regards to what type of services. If I'm going to have a full service funeral, which includes the burial, I have to buy caskets, or I'm going to have a direct cremation in which I may have a smaller memorial service with the cremation being the option, and so I'm cutting my cost half in two. Today's consumer is cost conscious. We are living in the information age. The internet has provided consumers access to various types of subject matter. However, the internet does not provide professional advice from someone involved in the insurance industry. Discussion with consumers must always begin with a fact-finding interview in order to provide the best possible solution to the concerns or financial problems insurance agents and advisors will uncover. It's no different with working a defined market such as final expense. Consumers want the best possible solution with the least cash outlay. Making sure our clients make the best possible choice is our responsibility. The funeral rule says, buy only the arrangements you want. Get the price information in person or on the phone. Obtain an itemized written price list while visiting the funeral home. Review the written price list before viewing caskets and outer containers. Request a written statement after the decisions are made and before agreeing to payment plans. Consider the use of an alternative container instead of casket for cremation, as this will offset the dollars being spent. Some consumers consider purchasing a casket from an outside source, which most funeral homes will not prefer. However, they will accept it. A suggestion for memorial services is to not choose embalming if direct burial or direct cremation is desired. Most importantly, review all the options available from a credible funeral home director before purchasing. Life insurance is the only product which guarantees what you want to happen will happen. It is a viable and legal contract between the policy owner and the insurance company. Making advanced decisions, which involves proper planning, along with an insurance policy, will ensure our loved ones are provided for and left being able to remain in their current style of living. Planning funerals in advance provides directions in how one wants to be remembered. Planning also provides direction to the family and funeral home staff in the location of cemetery spaces and plots. Planning one's funeral relieves the family of having to decide on what type of service that they think their loved one would have desired, or what type of casket or various merchandise that their loved one desired. The time spent planning today alleviates future problems later in life. Let's review the market for final expense insurance. It has been most commonly the senior age group. Oftentimes, retirees have retired with little or no life insurance, or upon retirement, they have learned that the policy they had in force for so long at work was a term policy and it will no longer be in effect, or the face amount of their whole life policy will reduce upon their retirement. At this point, they will need a policy to cover funeral costs. Baby boomers as well are a great market. This market is between the ages of 45 and 65. Both of these markets are great prospects for final expense, especially if health issues persist. Also, I would like for you to think about the younger generation, the younger age demographic. I had a young friend that was a good friend of mine, kept my children a lot, and one day we were sitting talking, and I said, "Do you own any life insurance?" And she said no. She was like 30, 31. She said, "I don't need life insurance." And I said, "Well, you know, you have a car payment." "Yes." "You have some other things that, you know, credit cards." And she said, "Yes." And I said, "Well, you know, there's a funeral. You know, if something happened to you, you know, who would pay for this?" And she said, "Well, Mom and Dad," because she wasn't married at the time. She said, "Well, Mom and Dad would pay for this." And I said, "Well, you know, wouldn't it be a good idea to leave Mom and Dad some money to take care of your final expenses should something happen to you?" So you can see the market is everywhere out there. Younger people, everyone needs, in my opinion, to be associated with a funeral home, to have decisions made, to know where they're going when death occurs, and that way the family is prepared. Premiums are designed for all income and age groups and will meet the need of being able to pay for final expenses. Less than 26% of Americans have savings and very few have an established emergency fund. So you can see the market for final expense insurance prospects is large. I think that we need to review the different types of insurance markets that we have out there. We have the agencies, which are payroll deduction companies that expertise is in payroll marketing, payroll deduction type companies. We have long-term care. We have the senior market, which deals with long-term care, Medicare supplements. We also have the higher end of insurance, which deals with the assets under management. All of these are great tools. And remember, everyone's doing the same thing. We're providing a product that insures against a loss. So my loss may be the car. I've wrecked the car, so there's a policy for that. The loss may be that now I need long-term care. I've had an injury or an illness, I need long-term care. So I can also bring in final expense policies into that same realm, no matter what that income level is. That when death occurs, again, I want to reemphasize this, that when death occurs, there is a policy in place that takes care of the final wishes for the insured and provides the dollars necessary to pay for those decisions. So the market, to me, no matter what age demographic that we're in, what age bracket that we're in, whether I'm in my 30s or in my 70s, in my opinion, I believe that everyone needs to have this type of policy in place that is specifically designed to take care of my final expenses. Final expense insurance was most commonly sold to the senior market, with the ages ranging from age 45 to 85. Most of these people are active in senior groups, assisted living communities, and various community, church, and civic organizations. Today's senior is an active citizen, and most instances is open to pre-planning and prepaying final expenses. As clients, they will also be an excellent source of referrals for you. Referrals can also be obtained from family and friends, neighbors, and business connections. Also, today's consumers, due to the travel, involvement in sport-related events, and overall active lifestyle, all these ages are needful of a final expense insurance policy. We must be reminded that death is not a respecter of age. Every household should be associated with a local funeral home and be familiar with funeral options regarding services and merchandise. I think that we understand by looking at this product that the main focus point is that life is uncertain, that no one is guaranteed today or tomorrow, that we do not know what tomorrow holds. And I want to share a story with you that made an impact on my life considerably. On December 2nd, 2006, my husband and I were having dinner with some other church family friends, and phone rang at 4:30. And I heard Tom say, "I'll be right there." And so we left to go to the emergency room at the hospital. And this lady had been attending my Sunday school class and just always vibrant and smiling and happy. And the family came in, and we learned that she had worked all day long and had talked to every family member. And at 4:30, she left their place of business and she went to the river and she committed suicide. And I watched a family just so torn and so shaken. I watched a family go through and literally destroy the waiting room because of the anguish. And fortunately, this family had money. Fortunately, this family could write a check. But I want to share with you I guess the passion that I have is that what if that family had not had money? What if that family not only had to learn how to live without mama, they had to also walk into that arrangement room and say, how am I going to pay for this? Where am I going to get the money? And most families, when they're met with that, they have to go out and they have to try to get the money. And I think as financial advisors and agents, we need to go a step ahead of them. We need to say, okay, I'm taking care of all of your insurance needs. I have your car, I have your homeowners, I have your retirement plan, we have an education plan. Now, let's talk about you. Let's talk about end of life. It's going to come. It's going to be there. And I would like to be the one that would help you walk through that time so that when something happens, I can proudly face your family and say, because they loved you so much, everything's been taken care of. And at the end of the day, when I've done that, I've done my job very well. As with all insurance sales, we are accustomed to hearing objections. Let's discuss the most common objections associated with buying final expense. The number one objection that we hear most often is, I already own life insurance. And we want to congratulate you for owning life insurance. That was a wise and smart investment that you made. However, final expense insurance is different from life insurance. It is a smaller face amount policy. The claims may be paid easier and quicker. And it's also that targeted market that says this product was bought for a specific reason. Another objection is that insurance is expensive. However, final expense insurance, because of the lower face amount, equates to a lower premium, thus making it more affordable for any income. And please remember, insurance is not expensive. The return for the premium that we pay offsets the small investment that we make for the greater benefit and the outcome of the life insurance benefit. Another objection to me that I find amusing is that people will say when I visit with them, well, just throw me in the river. Many people will try to tease away the thought of dying and say they don't need a costly funeral. What they're really saying to me is, I do not want to think about my own mortality. I don't want to think about my own demise. But I want you to consider this. All of us that have raised children come to the point that there will be a wedding one day. And as this wedding occurs, we will spend thousands of dollars for this wedding, for this event, that there is no guarantee of how long this wedding will last. It may last 6 months, it may last a year, it may last 10 years. But we've spent thousands of dollars for this event and we never blink an eye. However, someone can live 50 years or 70 years or even 80 years. And they will come back and say, well, don't do anything for me. And what in reality they're saying to that family is, I was not important. I want you to consider that a life lived is always important. There is value in celebrating that life. And whether we celebrate that life with a full traditional service or a simple memorial service, we have celebrated that life and we have said that my life is a better place because that individual lived. The other objection that we have is plenty of time. If we snooze, we lose. Waiting too long thinking that we have plenty of time could be detrimental to our loved ones. We are not guaranteed tomorrow and may only have today. Many people also rely on investments or savings, which could be depleted if economic conditions change. The only way to safeguard is to have a plan in place which requires little effort on the consumer. The consumer, once the policy is issued, has the obligation of making premium payments. The insurance company, if the policy in force, has the obligation of paying the benefit to the beneficiaries. We may not have plenty of time. In today's society, due to the travel that we do, oftentimes that we see that car wrecks have happened and the family's left unprepared. Well, just visualize this. If they're not prepared for the loss of a loved one and they're not financially prepared, that could be devastation on that family. So we need to be prepared. We don't know that we do have plenty of time. Another is lack of concern. The decisions we make affect more people than ourselves. When death occurs, several family members are involved. It's not a lone island type thing. If we're unprepared or they're unprepared, this is frustrating and overwhelming to them. If they have to ask relatives or friends for advice and money, that can be embarrassing to them. Planning ahead and leaving directions is the best solution for all involved. In my years of experience of recruiting and training agents, especially in the final expense market, one of the concerns that agents have had is, I don't know if I can deal with this. I don't know if that I can talk to people about death and things. And I would say this to you, that as what we do as insurance advisors and agents is to help people be prepared for whatever happens to them. We sell automobile and car insurance in the event they have a wreck. We sell mortgage insurance in the event that death occurs and the mortgage needs to be paid off. We sell health insurance because we're going to go to the hospital one day and we're going to need medical advice, so we sell premiums for that. So just look at this. This is just one more area of a person's life that you can be instrumental of helping them be prepared for. I want to give you a short story relating to that. I sat down with a husband and wife one day. The wife didn't say anything for 10 minutes. The husband said, I don't want much. I just want to go straight to the cemetery. I don't want anybody looking at me. And I looked at him and I said, you have 3 kids. You know, how do you want your children to remember you? Do you want to give them some time? Because remember, the family needs the closure, not the person that just passed away. The family needs the closure. They need to look at that person so that they can start the grieving process and the mourning process. So we walked through his, and he wasn't going to change, except he did meet me halfway and say, yeah, I'll give 1 hour. So we did that. The wife finally looks at me and she says, well, do you have any pictures of caskets? I said, yes, ma'am, we do. So we began looking at those. And she began talking about how she would like to be remembered. And remember, I'm saying celebration of life. How do I want to be remembered? So she decided that she wanted a visitation the night before and a funeral and a graveside. So we went from lots of decisions and lots of time being spent for the family to the husband saying, no time. So my question to you is, how would the children have known what mom and dad wanted? That's what we do as life insurance agents and advisors. We sit down with people to help them make their dreams come true. Having enough money to retire on, not outliving their retirement funds. Well, if we help people with those dreams, we need to also be able to help people with that unavoidable event that's going to occur in their life. On a humorous side, I was in Memphis one day, car looking for my daughter. I was going to buy her a car. And I looked over there, and this is when cars got to be so smart, remember? And it was over there running. There was no key in the ignition, and I'm just amazed at this car running without a key. And so the gentleman walked over there, and we began a conversation. And so he said, well, what do you do? And I said, well, my business that I do, my odds are a little bit greater than yours. And he looked at me kind of funny, and I said, my odds are 1 out of 1. And he said, how do you figure it? And I said, well, you know, for 5 people that come on your car lot, you may sell 1. But my odds are 1 out of 1. The people I deal with, eventually death will occur. Be prepared. In closing, we understand that most people do not like to consider the need to prepare for funeral and burial expenses. However, this is a critical part of personal estate planning. Writing a will, preparing an advance directive, along with providing funds to pay for the necessary decisions is wise. It would be proactive to include the funeral director as a team member with all other financial advisors associated with financial and estate planning strategy. Being prepared is always wise. Those who care, prepare.
Thank you for participating in this program. For more information regarding products, programs, services, and other NAIFA member benefits, visit www.naifa.org.